I'll say it. Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Thank you. Thank
I'll
you for
say
being
it.
brave enough. Thank you.
Well,
Welcome. I'm going to start us off with like just the lowest lowball question. Did you do comedy in college, and did you have plans to do comedy after college?
Well,
I start with Joe.
Oh, sorry.
Let's start with Sophie. Joe, I'm sorry. You're going to have to hold on because Sophie's going to start.
I'm so sorry, Joe. I did do comedy in college. I auditioned for an improv group kind of on a whim, and I really loved it. And then sort of got really into it, started to do sketch, and started like a late night show with my friend and wrote for our satirical newspaper. And then I graduated college wanting to do comedy.
Wow. Nice. Joe, how about you?
yeah. I also did do comedy. I was in a sketch group, with this guy, Dylan Marin, and then both of us left college early to go on the road together with a show, and then I think we kind of peer pressured each other into doing comedy outside of school. I didn't really know the industry very well. So I didn't even know there was an industry. So it was kind of like an eye-opening experience after school ended. But it was good. It was helpful to do it with someone else.
Yeah. I too need friends to remind me why I do it. Anna, what about you?
I just want to shout out Beth M, who said University of Utah, woohoo. I wore my I had to dig this. I had to dig this out of a box. I went to the University of Utah. I was in a sketch group called Friday Night Live, guys, and
what's that an homage to? Can you explain
not
it?
Sure. Not
okay,
sure.
Okay. We'll
and then I took classes at Comedy Sports, which is also where Jason Sudeikis started, but in Kansas. But I wasn't good enough to get on stage, so I ran the concession stand.
That's so good.
That's it.
But you left college and did documentaries, right? Not comedy right away.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I went to college in Utah, and you either went into broadcast journalism or nothing. And I did journalism for a while, and it led me into documentaries. So I did that for a while. It took me a very long time to get into actual comedy. So I'm going to be the oldie of the group to talk about how long it takes you to get there when you don't live near New York.
This is a good reminder to respect our elders, I think, for all of us.
Thank you.
I love that you shouted out Comedy Sports, because once I embarrassed myself at a sorority semi-formal with Comedy Sports headlining. They did not take my suggestions. That's all I'll say. All three of you have such different looking comedy lives and jobs, I think. So if you could tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and also I'd love to know about that first job, not gig, that really felt like, wow, I'm doing something. I have a career now. Anna, why don't you hit us off? Because we only have you for a little while.
I know. I have a hard out in 15 minutes. I'm so sorry. I think the first time I felt like something was happening that was different was when I went to interview at Frontal with Samantha Bee. I went into their lobby, and I was sitting, and there was like a row of interns, and I went in to interview for the position, and I kind of left. I had been interning for so long at that point, and I kind of left to go interview, left them a little bit in the dust, and I was like, oh, I'm not an intern anymore. Like, if I get this job, I don't have to, get somebody coffee. And that was the first moment where I was like, oh, and that was only perhaps 8 years ago. So again, it takes a while, but that was like the first moment where I was like, oh, I have kind of like up my game a little bit. Yeah.
Totally. Sophie, how about you?
Yeah, I think I'm still waiting for that moment to kick in. I think it always feels like a sort of hustle towards the next job right now, but I'm an actor mostly right now, and a writer occasionally, but I'm sort of focusing on acting. And I would say the first time it felt like I'm not going to work a day job anymore. I'm making enough money from this to pay my rent, was when I got cast on season 1 of Dickinson, which was, thank you, an incredible experience, and a few years ago. And I sort of naively thought it would have multiple seasons, and it did. So that worked out.
Sometimes our bets do pay off.
Yes.
Joe, how about you?
Yeah, I got it. I was working as a after school coordinator, and it was like that was like pretty much the best job I'd had in a while. And then I got a call that I could go work at Chris Gethard's show for 3 weeks writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, 3 weeks? Wow, that actually pays more than this does for 6 months. But I was like, maybe I should do it. Even though it's only 3 weeks, maybe that's stupid. But I quit the job and took the 3-week gig, and that turned into 5 weeks, which turned into 11 weeks, which turned into, let's go ahead and say 13. And then, and then I worked there for 2 seasons. So that was that felt like the right thing to do.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm so interested in all of our origins. Okay. What do you think you guys did right? Anna, what did you do right?
Everything. No, just kidding.
I know you did everything right, but if you had to pick something between Comedy Sports Concessions and Kelly Clarkson.
I should also just give people a little bit of a background, because I don't perform. I'm not in front of the cameras. I do a lot of the production. I direct and produce, and I started as a DP and as an editor. So there is a career for you in comedy, even if you don't get on stage. I already forgot your question. What did I do right?
What did you do right? You're
one thing,
constantly underselling yourself
I'm
here.
Sorry. One thing I do remember that has kind of stuck with me throughout the years is that when I finally moved to New York to pursue comedy, I was really trying to fit in. All the sketches that I would write or direct were about like the subway or like New York experiences. And I just remember somebody, I should probably remember who it was, but they were asking me about like my experiences in Utah and my experiences growing up. I was born in Mexico City. So they were like, tell me about that. Tell me about like funny things that happened to you there. And that's kind of when I realized like, you don't have to be that smug New Yorker telling the New York jokes. Like your experience is so valid and your jokes will come from that. So as boring as, growing up in Utah seemed, there were so many things that came out of it that were inherently funny. So that was a thing that immediately changed in my mindset. I was like, oh, I could use all of this in my comedy. I don't have to write about the subway in every sketch. So I hope that encourages people who are watching, because you don't have to be like from a big city to, you guys get it. You get it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
It's New York. Joe, how about you? What have you done right?
What have I done? I guess I didn't piss off the wrong people. I guess that was a big thing. That
is a huge thing.
Yeah. But there's still a lot of regrets. I have a lot of regrets. Can't really say specifically what they are, but I know them. And I guess the thing is that I think that this industry is really a big part of it is perseverance, and then the other part is just not getting bitter. So I think that every step you can take towards not getting bitter and towards like continuing in the momentum you're in the direction is that's the right way to go.
Yeah. Sophie, how about you? Oh no, Anna, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to fangirl Joe and tell her that I loved her special.
Oh, thank you.
Good timing.
Good timing. It's so good. I don't want to derail the chat, but
that's very nice. Thank you.
Everyone should watch it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
It's on the hit streaming platform Peacock, which
free as a bird.
Yeah, and you just have to watch 8 minutes of ads. So it's really it's actually free for a lot of people.
When Peacock first came out, I don't know if I'm preaching to the choir here, but in New York they did skywriting in the middle of COVID. Skywriting that said Peacock, free as a bird. So like I was laying on my bed looking out the window, and an E, just an E floated by, and I said to my roommates, "There's an E in the sky." a cloud maybe that's an E, and then we slowly saw like parts of, but never the whole thing. We had to go to Twitter and piece together Peacock free as a bird.
Wow.
So the money was worth it. I'll
It
tell
was
you what.
it was between the P and the A,
Yeah,
or it was just a loose. It
or
got
it was
loose.
one of the free E's. It fully said Peacock free as a bird. That's long.
That's crazy.
But someone absolutely did just see the word cock float above their apartment. It must be said. Lynn is back there thinking, must it have been said? But
It was Sophie's turn. It was Sophie's turn.
It was Sophie's turn.
Oh.
Sophie.
What did I do right? I would say, like Joe, I also had a friend from college that we attacked the scene together, started hanging out at the same theater and trying to make friends. And there were two girls who we always saw around the theater who were kind of like, we loved their work and we could tell that they were students just like us at the theater, in similar places in our beginnings of our comedy career. And we didn't know them at all. And we sort of on a whim asked them to do a show with us. And the show felt so good. And that is my team, Ladies Who Ranch, now for 5 years. And those girls are, now we work on bigger things that aren't just like little shows in basements, but they are totally like my support system. We keep each other from getting bitter. I'm so inspired by them all the time. They're my favorite part about doing comedy. So I would say ask the cool girls at your theater to collaborate with you, and they probably will. Yeah.
That's amazing. Let's keep going. I'd love to know how you sort of found it among all the theaters, and just a little bit more about how you found your community. I think you, of all of our panelists, who are all amazing, really exemplify what we're talking about in terms of finding a comedy community.
Yeah, I'm in it. We'll see it. I'm still deeply in the beginning parts of my career. So any advice you guys have for me, I'll take as well. But I had studied a little bit at UCB over the summers in between college. I didn't like it that much. That's not a knock on UCB. It just didn't feel like my kind of people, didn't feel like my kind of comedy. And it felt like it was going to take a really long time to get on stage. And I really wanted to get on stage. And then I had a friend who I had met also through college who was doing stuff at this theater called Annoyance that has now turned into Brooklyn Comedy Collective. So I do recommend Brooklyn Comedy Collective for anyone who is in New York or is there for even a few months. But I played a dead body in my friend's show that was like a one-off, and I was like, this is my vibe. It was a weird basement. There was a lot of rats. Nobody paid for beer. There was definitely an illegal internship I had, bartending, and I loved it. And I literally hung out there 7 to midnight every Thursday, Friday, Saturday for a year. Not even like I told myself I had to. I wanted to. I don't know. I was just obsessed. I'm sure I saw Joe perform there. I was really into it. And yeah, and I don't know. And then I forget what the second part of the question was, but that's basically like how I found my people. Just trial and error. A friend recommended it, and then just hung out like a mad person. Yeah.
I love that. I too, this is not going to become a We Hate UCB show because we don't. But I too came to New York thinking all in at UCB. And it just became so cost prohibitive also for me that I needed another way in. How about you, Anna?
I want to quickly just give a counter view of how, because I know Sophie has like her community that she grew up with. But when I was at Comedy Sports, there were 2 other girls. This is not going to become a hateful thing, but we all were like, we're going to move to New York together. We're going to pursue comedy. We made a pact. They did not move to New York.
They never do.
They never do. So, I mean, they're very happy where they are. But I mean, it took me 8 years to fully be like, I'm going to move to New York. I saw a little paragraph on a website somewhere that said UCB Amy Poehler, and I was all in as it happens. And then I feel like I got very lucky because I started as an intern, worked my way up to run the digital studio there. And throughout the way, I kind of just met people, you know, specifically women who wanted to make comedy together. And we all sort of like grew up together. And now a lot of them are like working on different shows. So we like keep in touch and we're like, what's your show working on? What are you doing? So the point is, if you make a pact with someone in college, they're not, they didn't, I remember just being like, we're going to graduate. We're going to be on the first plane to New York. And then it didn't happen.
Who among us hasn't made one or two of those pacts? I think mine started at 17. We're going to move to New York. But here we are. Joe, how about you? How'd you find your community?
You know, I think it was kind of just like, I guess, I don't know. I guess it's kind of just like finding people that I came up at a time where like it was like really mean. The stand-up scene was like really mean. Like they were like you had to kind of like punch somebody
bite.
And people were like, you're awesome. And so I think I was like kind of like, oh God, this is gonna be rough. But then like the next I don't know if there's generations really, but the next people to come up were kind of like not having it anymore. So like it was kind of like a nice group of people that came after that. And that was like really helpful because then it was like everybody was like, oh yeah, you want to do my show? You want to do my show? And it was like kind of I was coming up at a time where a lot of people were doing shows at like different venues. Like it was kind of like we were like rats. You know what I mean? We were all kind of like finding a new venue and putting on a new weird show. And I think kind of from that you kind of figure out who wants to do weird stuff and who thrives in that and feels good doing that. And then that kind of I made a lot of friends that way. But I just was remembering but like both of you were telling these stories and it made me think about this. I was in this improv group in St. Louis. I started in St. Louis and I remember we were all at a diner and we said we were all like 22, maybe 21. And we were all like, if we don't make it by the time we're 30, we're all going to quit. Right. And it was like, and I thought about that all the time. I like thought about that because if 30 felt so far away. And now I'm like, we're all in very, very different places, but it is kind of interesting that we all thought that 30 was it, which is not it, but it seems like it when you're 21 or something.
I turn 28 tomorrow, and I do feel like after 28, it's all. If I don't get an agent by the time I'm 30, I'm quitting for sure. No,
you can't, because it really is like it doesn't. There is like no. If there was like a linear path, a lot of people would be you'd see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if the river has carved itself out, then you'd see. And I think a lot of right now there isn't really, and so there's no timeline.
I think there's an expectation that comedy is like a solo sport, but it's very much the opposite. It's a team sport. You have to find any number of friends to sort of, and then all climb and build the ladder at the same time. There's also an expectation that people will lift you up, and that's true, but only if there's a big group of you there reaching, you know? Mm-hmm. Anna, I know you have to go, and we're going to switch to some audience questions.
Okay.
In the meantime, do you have anything you want to plug, Anna?
The reason I'm leaving this panel, which I'm like, oh, I wish I would have scheduled this better, is I have to go advise one of the Gold Digital teams. We just launched our first and second videos with Gold's new digital teams, and I'm very excited. So really go watch them. They're on the Gold Comedy YouTube and social media. I'm the Gold Comedy Digital Team Advisor, which I'm very proud of. We have 8 teams of women and non-binary folks making content. If you want to find out more about them, come on over to Gold, check it out. But yeah, I meet with them once a month, and I'm meeting with the Chicago team today, which I'm very excited about. I'm excited to see what crazy cuckoo video they made. But Should I go? Should I answer a question? Is this enough?
Do you want to answer a question? It's up to you, my friend. I'm not here to torture you and lock you away from
I'm
the
having
rest of
so
the
much
people.
fun, though. This is such a
This
fun
is fun.
panel. I'll answer
Well,
one question.
okay. When's it smart to start thinking about an agent? This is from Claire. Claire wants to know about agents. And Claire, first of all, let me say, so do we all. So do we all. Anna, what do you got?
I mean, I guess it's never too early to start thinking about an agent. No, I will tell you, I got a manager for the first time over the pandemic, and it was only because I put my favorite things that I had worked on. I had left my job at Frontal with Samantha B that I had been at for 5 years, and I said, these are my favorite things that I worked on the show, just like kind of like an homage, because I didn't get to see the crew because the pandemic kind of shut everything down. So I was like, I want to share my favorite moments, because usually people get a party when they leave. Anyways, I put my 10 favorite things that I'd worked on. A manager out of nowhere reaches me on Twitter and is like, hey, we represent people that do comedy in production. And I was like, that's me. So I have been with my manager ever since. So it really absolutely came out of nowhere. Again, I know people usually do like showcases and perform, but sometimes you just got to put your stuff on Twitter. Don't be afraid to promote yourself, really.
That's great. That's a great ending note, Anna.
Thank
Bravely
you.
Represented.
Feel free to follow me on socials. Joe, a pleasure. Sophie, a pleasure. I hope we run into each other again. Maggie, happy birthday tomorrow. And I'm going to jump to the Chicago team. So
bye,
you
Anna.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
How about the rest of you? Joe.
What would you say was the question?
I would say that the question from Claire was, when is it smart to start thinking about an agent? But we're going to say, like, we're going to talk about agents broadly.
Okay.
This is the big mystery of the industry still,
okay.
I think.
Okay. I see. Okay. So I have a theory, and that is that it's like agents, I don't think that they do that much. I think it's like a nice shirt where you feel more confident, but you still are wearing the shirt, right? And you bought the shirt, and I think that these agents, they'll help you get more money, or they'll help you, and maybe they like connect you to like a packet or two, or like an audition. But truthfully, it's like you're really pushing yourself, and it's always going to be like that. And everyone I know that doesn't have an agent wants one, and everyone I know that has an agent hates them. So I don't know what the answer is, but they're not a magical answer. But, and I'm sorry to say that, because I know that there is the search for a magical answer, but I do think it really is just your own passion is truly the only thing that gets you anywhere.
Sophie, agree?
I agree. I was going to say the same thing, which is my manager actually told me this, and he was like, we get paid 10% of your entire paycheck because we do 10% of the work and you do 90. And it's true. Like, you make everything happen for yourself. I am lucky to be represented by people that I think are good and at good places, but it's still almost everything I get is because I knew someone through the comedy scene, or someone saw something of mine, and blah, 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 blah. They can get you in certain rooms. You can get lucky on certain auditions and certain interviews, but it's like, it's really you for the most part. And I think even more now than it was like 20 years ago, they're such middlemen. Like 20 years ago, if you were like, a white guy on the Lower East Side who could write some like punchlines, then your agent could be like, hey, stick them in a late night room, and it would happen. But now it's like everybody can make their own things and put it out there, and industry can reach it because of the internet. And yeah, whatever. And then the other thing I'll say, which is annoying, is that once your work gets good, they find you. Like, that is the one thing they are good at, I think, is being aware of who is sort of popping off online in a scene. And I remembered, I have an example of this, which is basically like, a manager saw a show of mine and he signed me. And then my friend wanted a manager, so I introduced them and he signed her. but he didn't find her. He basically like signed her because I had said nice things about her. And they didn't have a great relationship, and he didn't do good work for her because she wasn't his choice. He wasn't excited. Then 3 years later, another manager found her. She signed with him, and yeah, and they have a great relationship. She's done so much more through him. So it's like, it's annoying to be patient, but I really think if you hone your craft, they come.
Yeah, my first gig, my illegal internship, was at a lit agency representing playwrights, and it was very much the same thing. Like, the people who were getting the most work were the ones sending their own stuff out into the world. So I urge you, Claire, to think about getting an agent all you want. It's a fun thing to have on your shelf, but it's like they said about putting your own stuff out there. Self-promotion is the name of the game. Joe, this one's for you. What advice do you have for anyone looking to start stand-up? We're talking floor one.
Okay. To start stand-up, I would write a joke. I would write one joke, and it doesn't have to be a stand-up punchline, like a setup punchline. It can just be a joke, something that you think is funny that has a beginning and an end. And then I would say the joke and see kind of how that feels, and then kind of build out 5 minutes of that, and then do it on stage, and then stick around.
I think that was a great answer.
Okay. That's my
And
answer.
it also was really cracking me and Sophie up.
Okay.
But that's just because you're a talent. You're a star.
That is truly my first stand-up gig. It was at a space that didn't have chairs, and I spent the whole time putting out the chairs. And then at the end, I put all the chairs back. I don't really remember how the set went, but that was kind of what I remember. So, I think it's just like, stand-up is so much more than the 10 minutes you're on stage. It's like, you get there, you say hi to people, you meet people, then you go on stage, and you hopefully don't, have an accident. And then you go backstage and you meet more people. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole part of it. It's like saying the meal is just the chicken when you went to dinner,
I think that was profound, actually.
Sure.
I feel moved. Sophie, is it possible to be doing too many things? Is it better to find your niche, or is it helpful to spread yourself out and get yourself out there as much as possible? This is from Amanda. Hi, Amanda.
Yeah, Amanda, this is a good question. I think about this too, because I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I like to do alt character, I don't know, whatever, something live, but I also like to write musicals. And I think I had a clown teacher one time who told me to just follow the inspiration. Like, if you really feel like making a front facing character video, then do it. And if you really feel like doing stand up, then do it. But don't do something just because other people are doing it or it seems like the popular thing to do. So if you find that you are sort of attracted to all of these different types of mediums, then yeah, I say go for it. And then your niche or whatever is that you are a versatile artist. Or if you find that your thing is like it's stand up, then you're a really hardcore stand up. And I think there's no greater value in one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you balance, this is from Madeline G. Hi, Madeline, or Madeline. Either one, we're proud that you're here. Proud that you're here. Well, Pride's coming up. How do you balance long-term projects, scripts, etc., with shorter projects like sketches and satire pieces in terms of building your work and community? I think this is a great and also tricky balance to strike. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that when these are young people, right?
These are young people. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I would say that if I were to be young again,
Mm-hmm.
and it could happen at any moment, I would say that I would enjoy comedy as much as possible. And you're going to get something eventually. I would just say that it is so much more important to enjoy making comedy and enjoy creating stuff and being with people that make you laugh, you laugh, that laugh with you, because that's gonna what's you really just the goal should not be to like come up with like the perfect script. The goal is to hone your voice, and you hone your voice by enjoying your own voice. And then the thing is that you are going to enter into an industry where everybody is saying no to you. So when you enter into that industry, you have to be confident and enjoy your own voice enough so that when people say no, you don't crumble. You're not saying, "Oh, they're right." You say, "Oh, wait, but I had so much fun. I've had so much fun. I've had so much I'm so fun." And that you have that kind of that's yeah, that's my theory on it. That didn't
I
really
think
answer the question, but that's
I
my
think
theory.
it did. I
Okay.
think it's prioritize the fun that you're having. Sophie, do you agree?
I do. I feel like, yeah, similar to what I said before, just like follow what excites you. I will say, it takes up a lot of your time. Like it takes up a lot of time and discipline. But if you love to sit down and make stuff, then it's not a problem. I remember working a customer service job and going offline when I wasn't supposed to be to work on a script I was excited about, and then going after work to sit at an open mic for 3 hours. So it's definitely a little bit of a grind, but to do short-term projects and long-term projects, but I think worth it because the work is really fun most of the time.
Most of the time.
Most
of the time is pretty good. This is a fun one. Who are your comedy inspirations now, and are they the same as when you first graduated? Let's start with Sophie.
Yeah.
She's thinking so hard.
I have a comedy inspiration that has stayed the same throughout, and that was Bo Burnham for me. I loved his specials when I was younger and in college, and then his career has continued to evolve, which is so exciting. He feels like he's around my age too, so it just feels like he's like speaking to my experience sometimes. But I guess my idols have changed from like being people I used to watch on TV, the people we all know, Mindy Kaling and Tina Fey, who I still love and I love their work, to the people I know personally, who I think are doing like amazing things that I get to see, every night.
Yeah, I think I've gone on a similar inspiration journey where it's the people that seem so far away, and then the further you get, they start to be the ones that are just so close to you. Joe, how about you?
I would say the same as Sophie. And what you were saying, Maggie, that it's like, yeah, it seems like very glamorous to think about the people that are very, very famous, but that's not necessarily like, yeah, the more you get experience, you're like, oh, 800 people wrote for them. Oh, that's like that is a costume. Oh, they did, like, somebody designed that strange wig, right? And so it's like you just kind of realize that it's like a group effort, so that the people that are doing it themselves, it's like really amazing, right? When you're like, oh wow, you did that without a team. That's very, I admire that.
I agree. Oh man, the story is too long to tell, especially because I'm the host of this panel and not a panelist, but I had the craziest stress dream about meeting Tina Fey in college. And at the end of it, I'm running back to her to meet her. And at the end, she says, some people just don't have what it takes. And she walks away. It was the worst dream of my life. And I think about it all the time. All the time. How do you craft meaningful comedy? I want to write comedy that has an impact, but is still funny, and that's so hard to balance. This is Beth. And I want to start with Joe, not just specifically because of good timing, but that was such a thing that made an impact on me just watching, and I am not old.
I guess that's a good question. I guess it's like we didn't really seek out to make good timing meaningful, but I understand that by the nature of it, it came across that way, which is great. That's great. But I wonder. I don't know this. I don't know if I am qualified to answer this question because I don't know if I truly make. I'm not trying to. I don't know if I make meaningful. I make like pretty silly. Yeah. I don't know. I think that that's a wonderful goal to have, and I don't. I'm gonna pass. I don't feel qualified.
Okay,
To answer that question.
that's fair enough.
Mhm.
I will say that I think, I guess it also is up to interpretation what meaningful means. But to me, if you make comedy that is good, it will be meaningful to people. I'll finish us up tonight in a moment, not right now, but by saying what part of good timing I thought was so meaningful specifically because I watch it over and over. Sophie, you're actually over there. How about you? Meaningful comedy. Do you do it?
Oh my god.
No, I actually think I have definitely given myself the sort of taken the pressure off. Like I definitely do comedy for me. I think if I was trying to do something nice for the world, I would not be doing comedy. I think I would be a social worker or something. But I will say like over time, however many years I've been doing it, which still to me doesn't even feel like that long, I have learned that I would like to say something in my comedy, whether that's an emotional truth or it's something that feels a little topical. But that really took at least 5 years of doing very random stuff or doing very character heavy stuff or to figure out what was and wasn't for me. And I will say, like, when I do this bit that's like about my Jewish aunt talking to me about Louis C.K. So I like to start from a place where, like, I know what I believe about him, which is that he shouldn't be working, but then I like to attack it from an atypical place, not just saying what I feel, but talking about how much my aunt misses him because she thought he was a talent. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
I want to see the bit now. No, I think that's right. I think at Gold, we talk a lot about comedy as a means for social change. And I believe that it is. I believe that the three of us talking here today for this group of probably primarily women that are in the audience, that is meaningful and a means of social change. But it doesn't mean that when any of us sit down to write comedy, we're thinking of the meaning first and foremost. It's sort of a chicken and the egg situation. Like every book you studied in English class, at a certain point, the author was just writing a story, but that doesn't mean the symbols don't mean something.
I always thought that's an interesting one. I always wondered about that.
I know.
If they thought they were doing the symbols.
You know, I think James Joyce thought he was doing the symbols.
Oh.
And Dan Brown for sure.
Like Ulysses is definitely him showing. I'm about to say something that's inappropriate, so no. Yeah, he put his whole head into Ulysses or whatever.
Okay, Sophie, I'm coming right back at you with this question from Beth. What tips do you have on building and keeping your comedy community connected? Beth is struggling to find the right platform and timing that make things work for more than two people. Sophie, you have a sketch group that has stayed alive and become very successful.
Yeah, it's work. It's definitely work. I think it is as much about finding people who are as passionate about it as you are. You know, you don't want to work with people where you feel like you're pulling them across, you know, to collaborate with you. But it's also really important to hang out outside of doing comedy. Like we love to do comedy together, but we also love to hang out. And so that's like the first thing is like make sure there are people that like socially you enjoy and would want to just. I remember those. I mean, I have other friends, but I feel like I almost like neglected my other friends for like a year in favor of my comedy friends because it was like everything I wanted to do was like, hey, you guys want to come to this with me? You guys want to get a drink with me here, whatever. And then once you're deep in 2 years, 3 years, it is about checking in and making sure that everyone's still feeling good and the expectations. But yeah, just stay with it, I guess, and yeah, look for those people who like feel like you.
Have you ever, I'm extrapolating now, have you ever lost a member of Ladies Who Ranch or gained one late on?
We have lost a member.
You don't have to give us gory deets, but like, how did you handle it?
We could sort of tell that this person was not as into it and didn't want to say, I want to leave because they didn't want to hurt our feelings, but like wasn't showing up to rehearsals, sketch shoots, shows at the end, which was like the big thing. And we just had a conversation that was like, it feels like maybe you don't want to do this. And they were like, yeah, I don't really want to do this. It was sad. It was hard. And we were scared to lose that person because they're really talented, but losing someone who didn't want to be in the group made the group so much stronger because we were just so much more cohesive. And also we all really wanted to do it. So we could rehearse twice as much as we used to because we weren't working around this person's schedule.
Yeah, that's amazing. Joe, how about you? How do you not only just find the right community, but keep it together like a happy family?
Okay, I don't know. I mean, I guess these are such gregreat questions. I don't know.
They're hard. These ladies did not come to play with us.
I don't really have a group. I guess I guess it's like you have oh, here's something. Okay, so you make comedy friends and you make friends that you like their work and you just support them. You watch their things, you go to their shows, you have, they go to your shows, they watch your things and you show up for each other. So basically it's just like as much support as you want. Like if you see somebody put out a good joke and you say it, or if they, because it feels so good when people say it to you, right? So just kind of like spread the love around a little bit, because I think that does kind of I think that's it's hard because you never know if you're going to be inside again for a while. So it's like it's kind of just nice to kind of keep an eye out for people and keep an eye out for what they're making, and it is fun. It's fun to go see a show with other people. Say, oh wow, we're all here to see this. This is great. Look at this. Let's get fries. It's kind of fun.
I used to say, and I really should put it on a t-shirt, friendship is 90% showing up and 10% secrets. And the same is true with making a comedy friend. You just have to go to their shows. That's the big thing. One more from the audience. Isabella wants to know what you recommend is standard to have in your back pocket in terms of writing samples. Tricky. I'll tell you, Isabella, it's tricky because a lot of packet meaning what you send to get on to a late night show, you kind of have to not start from scratch, but you got to write originally. Joe, how do you feel about this question?
Well, I would say that
knowing that Isabella is here watching.
Isabella, hey, I would say that if you want to write for a narrative show, you write a pilot. And if you want to work for SNL, the pilot, the packet is the same year after year. So you can work on that. It doesn't change. It's always the same thing. It's like 4 sketches. You can find it online. It's the same every single year. For these late night packets, if you want to work for late night, I encourage you to watch the show that you want to work for, because a lot of people do not watch the show that they want to work for. And I understand that because I also have applied to things that I have not watched. However, I do think it really helps the people that are hiring know that you watch the show, which is probably one of the most important questions you can say yes to in an interview, if that were to happen.
And they'll know.
Yeah, or you could, or get good at lying, but you at least watch one episode. That's my advice, along with writing materials.
Sophie, how about you?
Yeah, the first show I got hired to write for, I had a pilot. So just like, that's for those of you who don't know, it's just the first episode of your theoretical TV show. And I was hired to write on a half-hour comedy, and I had a 30-ish page comedy pilot. And then I also had the script of a musical that I had written that was not like anything like the show, but was a good example of my voice. I know people who've gotten hired based on short films that they've made. So it is, I think what Joe said is really important, because you want to write for the show you want to be on. And then also people want to hear your original voice. So if there's an example of that, even like sometimes people's Twitters get them hired,
Totally.
just wherever they can see you making jokes. Because this is a comedy panel. You can get hired to do drama too.
Thank goodness.
And you could have a drama pilot, but yeah.
I think all of your answers here today have pointed towards the fact that obviously there's no one path, but even the numbered paths in the last 5, including COVID, maybe 10 even years, have gotten even more varied. You can get hired onto a TV show as long as you're good with pretty much anything that you really loved and that turned out really well. So keep writing, Isabella. Have all the samples. Okay, I would love for you guys to plug your own stuff, but first, one last question. And this is a big one. Looking at yourself just after college, you're 23. Is that how old people are when they graduate college? I think that's how old I was. What is the piece of advice that you would give yourself? Field of Dreams style.
I know, because I've thought about
Sophie.
it. Mine would be, and this is not a knock to anyone who does this, mine would be, do not take an assistant job. Because I took an assistant job in the industry. I was a really bad assistant. I felt like when I got fired from that assistant job that I would never work again. And I didn't need that. You can do this without fetching coffee for someone for years and years and years. And being an assistant is really it's really hard.
It's really hard.
It's really hard right out of college too. That's the first job you've ever had. So don't take it if you don't want it.
Joe, how about you?
I would say to not be so concerned about career stuff, and just to kind of make your artsy stuff, and make your jokes, and make friends. I think the rest of it is out of your control entirely. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think letting go of the things that are out of our control is probably the biggest step forward when you're trying to become a writer or anything in comedy. The advice I would give myself is that I would try to be less competitive in general. I am a very competitive person, and that's okay in some rights, but not when you're just trying to make friends and have fun. And when you can relax into that, your life becomes better. Where can people find you? Where can people see you? Sophie, what's going on?
You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter if you just search Sophie Zucker. I'm String Cheese Zucker is my name on both of those. But I think if you search Sophie, it'll show up too. So I have links to my shows. I'm workshopping a solo show. It is a one-woman musical, and it's going up at 54 Below on July 6th, and I need to fill those seats. So if you're in New York, I would love to see you there. And if not, no worries.
Wow. I hope I can go, not just to see the room where Countess Luann has
That's
done
what I'm
so
saying.
much.
I can't wait.
Joe, how about you?
I do a show on Mondays, every Monday at Littlefield, called Butterboy. So you can, if you are a comic, you can come for free. Just say you're a comic at the door.
Amazing. Okay, I want to say one more thing, which is if you watch Joe's Good Timing, I hope that you cry when I cry, and I watch all the time, which is when Joe tells a very nice woman that she's funny, and she's the first person who's ever told her that. Joe, that was, I mean, high art. It was incredible.
I'm so glad you liked that part. That's great. Yes, that woman is a real character for sure, and she's a very funny lady, and I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. Thank you
Of
for
course.
having me on this panel. It's been great
It's a good.
to hear your thoughts, and Sophie, your thoughts. I'm inspired.
Totally.
Thank you both. I'm inspired too. I hope that everyone watching got something from this panel. We would love at Gold to know what you want to see next, who you want to hear from, what you want to learn. Our DMs are open at Gold Comedy on Instagram and Twitter, at Gold_comedy_ on TikTok. And conversations like this are happening in the Gold Club every week. Every Wednesday, we bring comedy pros in to have some face-to-face Zoom time with our members. And next week, we have Patty Harrison, which we truly cannot contain our excitement about. It's going to be huge. You're going to get an email from Peak tomorrow with all the details on how you can join Gold and get your free She Memes Well copy, Quinta Brunson's book. But in the meantime, you can join at club.goldcomedy.com and start your free trial. It's 14 days. Yes, that's enough time to see Patty Harrison. Love you both. Thank you so much for being here. This was a joy, truly. Bye, everyone. Take care of each other. Love each other. Make friends.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're free. Okay. Thank you.